Hey, greetings, Lasse. Thank you so much for the last video, and I really dig the sound of your 5 string with the high C. Um, it makes me consider doing the same thing. I have another one of those basses, an earlier model, and I might try that out. It sounds really suitable for those interval exercises, and sounds like a lot of fun. So I checked them all out. They sound really good. I'm hearing improvement on the legato, which is really nice. And also, I love your exercise. I mean, your idea about creating 3 different exercises for each of the segments. Um, yeah, I mean, it is a sizable amount of work, but there's really you don't really have to rush it or anything. The idea is to explore the material in such a way that it becomes firmly rooted in your long-term memory, um, which ultimately becomes part of your musical profile of who you are as a musician. And I've always been very keen on advising all my students to avoid falling into the trap of wanting to acquire a lot of things really fast in order to impress, because that in a way is the wrong motivation, because in a way it can enslave you as to always doing something in order to appear a certain way rather than being a certain way, which is like, it's almost like when you play good music, it's an internal involvement with creativity, and there's an output that then will also sound good to people, but it's the result of the internal process. And so it's important not to have any fear in there, or anxieties, or to have a kind of relationship between your mind and your instrument where the mind dominates the instrument. It should be more of a an egalitarian relationship, that sometimes this is up, sometimes this is up. Sometimes ideas come from the fingers, sometimes they come from the head, but it should be both of those levels are important. So I did want to give you some pointers that I hope will help you towards creating your new exercises. So consider that for each interval, just one interval alone is already part of the sequence. Um, and then in terms of how you modify that interval, um, you can modify, like if you're looking at, let's say, one interval, major third, right? Let me see, I might have to turn a little bit up here. One second. So if I have it's just one element of the third exercise. Your possibilities include every subdivision of the third, which would be whole tones. 2 whole tones are a third, or which would also include minor sixes. So you see, like, this is actually major six. So if you go, um, and also you have also good results if you let me actually give you another example of the thirds. Like, you worked on this one, which is really nice, where you went. So you see, like, moving it in whole tones is part of staying inside of the harmonic color, because 3 whole tones make up a major third. 3 or 2? 2, I meant to say. So now, other things to include is reversing directions, which sometimes makes it more elegant. So if you, for instance, go, you get an elegant solution. So you can consider that when you craft your exercises. Another thing to include also is um, a rhythmic consideration of numbers. You know, you can pick a number, um, and you know, let's say you can do groups of 5, which would be. So to make the numbers elegant, like, you know, oops, somebody was throwing something out there. To make the numbers elegant, I would experiment with taking a note out and putting a rest in there. So let's say if I go to another number and I'll say I'll work with threes, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can go. Uh, Oh no, actually, that's not a good example because I have 3 notes, so that locks me into this position. So let's say I take a 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So normally I could go. It's actually pretty cool because I'm also sliding on the middle note. Now, if I take 1 out, right? 1, 2. Or if I do 5, it would be. So that will give you a lot of different variations. You know, if you include like the rhythmical phrasing component, um, taking numbers out, using all the smaller elements in it. Um, now, if you are dealing with chromaticism, you are definitely in a situation where there's like the most of all possibilities. Um, so you can even like what it means chromatic is like even in one element. Or 3. Now I've moved them in thirds or moving them in fourths, moving them in flat 5s, or uh, so I'm just making things up right now without, you know, having any real concept here. But yes, so yeah, remember those things, that the full exercises that you are learning, um, they are really good for the fingers and understanding how these intervals work. But the fun part is in taking smaller elements and working with them. So you can also see, for instance, that the minor thirds, um, you know, they are related to the major sixes because they're inversions of each other. The minor thirds are also related to the tritones, because 2 minor thirds make a tritone. So you know, you when you try to figure out at which rate you are displacing an interval, try to stay inside of its natural color that way. So let's say if you were to use minor thirds and you would move them in whole tones, that will also sound nice. But it for now it would take you into a more complex world where you're starting to marry off 2 different intervals with each other. Um, so you can see once you get through the basic intervals, then you can start pairing them up, and the pairs of intervals will create the next, you know, hundreds of possibilities. So there's no shortage of possibilities. So whatever you do is the key is to spend enough time until you find something that you really, really like, and you're like, yeah, this is cool. and this is my stuff. And because then it's okay to put in the work, and it will be part of your style, and it's organic that way. Okay, all right, Lasse. Yeah, over here we actually have a little bit of a heat wave. I have my fan running in here. It's not bad. Um, Congratulations to the new head of state in Denmark. Sounds like pretty cool. Um, and yeah, what you're saying is exactly right. Like the people who consider themselves center in Denmark would, would be considered on the left in the U.S. But that has to do with the fact that I think, capitalism, as it is in the U.S., is kind of has bankrupted itself really, and now it's showing the ugly side. How on all levels you see cheating, money laundering, bribing. It's almost like going in a little bit the direction of, the Russian state, where greedy people have just found a way to legitimize their greed and make themselves feel good by giving a little bit to philanthropy, but still, influencing government in such a way as to favor, their money hoarding philosophy, and that's coming to an end. So, we are definitely. It's a bit of a nail biter. My wife and I, we were a few times on the edge where we were seriously considering moving to Europe. But as you can imagine, it's a huge life decision, to uproot your children. I have nice connections here with different schools and musicians and all of that. It would have to get really, really bad. If Trump wins again, I'm going to knock on wood that he doesn't, but that, might change things. But it is pretty bad, like you see. Homelessness, mental illness in the streets here in the US, in the inner cities, is like you would be shocked if you would see how terrible, people's state of mind is. And they are forgotten, they have no health insurance, they are in the streets, sometimes old people with wheelchairs, rolling up on trash cans, people living in tents, on the sidewalk, it's really something else. I didn't think it was going to ever get this bad, but we'll see, hopefully people power will happen, and these young people who are in Congress are going to shake things up a little bit, like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez happens to be the women, and Bernie Sanders, of course. All right, Lasse, have a good one. Have a nice weekend, and I'll send you the next three. All right, take care. Bye.